People talk about the priesthood of believers. I'm a priest and a king. Like it's some kind of authority or power. Priesthood, you just saw it right here, just now. That's priesthood, guys. This is not even what I want to talk about, but I can't let it go. Priesthood is an intermediary. You're an intermediary, and we're all called to this. We just saw it. A priest is someone who can have access to the heavenlies and have access to the earth and grab a hold of both and pull them together. They focus our attention. We could have put our minds on a billion things, more than a billion things. There are more than a billion things we could have been paying attention to just now. I could be contemplating the rock-hold hardness of this floor. I could be contemplating the weight of this building on the foundation. I could be contemplating the temperature outside. I could be contemplating my feelings. I could be contemplating, it's infinite. It's endless, what I could be thinking about, what I could be focusing my attention on. And these priests stood up here and gathered our attention. They said, look at Christ. It's necessary. You think priesthood is some power trip or some authority position? It's not. It's service. It's service. You want to be elevated in the kingdom of God? You want to be the greatest? You want to be a leader? Bad news. It's service. It's dying. These three people up here this morning could have spent their time in any other way. Again, an infinite amount of choices. They decided to get up and prepare and be here early and rehearse and choose songs intentionally. That's service. That's death. That's death. They died to every other possibility that was before them this morning, at this time. For you, for me. Priesthood is service, it's death, it's necessary, and it's what you're called to, every one of you. And we all do it in different ways, and thank God for that, because I can't do it the way Silas does it. I can't do it the way Gracious does it. I can't do it the way Nehemiah does it, because I'm different. But I can do it the way I do it, and you can do it the way you do it. What's that? Find your own fire. Yes, we just sang that. Oh man, I'm stirred up. So this is Pentecost. It's a very important day. I want to tell you a story about Pentecost. And I draw from my own experience. It's an experience that you haven't had because you're not me. And you have similar stories that you've experienced recently that I haven't experienced. But I don't know your story. I live my life. And this is my story. My little girls, yeah, they're not. And also, they're not the girls. They're Violet and Clementine, a.k.a. Buttercup. We're trying to break ourselves of saying the girls because they are different individuals. They're individual people. They're not the same. They got their driver's permits this week. Yeah. They got their driver's permits. And they also got jobs. And they recently experienced their first shift at work. And they drove there with me in the passenger seat, and they drove home. Individually, I say they. Yesterday, for example, I think Violet drove to work. They worked. I went back and got them, and Clementine drove home. They're driving. They're working.
Are you okay?
Yes. Yes, it's weird, and I hate it, and I love it too. Because I'm going to be the worst empty nester ever. I'm already feeling it. I'm already feeling it. But we're talking about driving. And many of you in this room have taught children to drive. I've taught 6 so far to drive. There's one of them right there. We always start out in the field. We take the car, we open the gate, we go in the field, and go crazy. Remember where the brake is. And we drive around in the field, and we go over the bumps, and we run over the manure piles, and we have that kind of fun. That's where we start. Now, teaching a child, I have a point here, so stick with me. Teaching a child, teaching a young person to drive, a young adult to drive. You know how I am. I start talking about friction and surface tension and momentum and the laws of gravity and inertia and all that stuff. And we're just going over this yesterday. Like when your car is going in a straight line, and let's say you're going 35 miles an hour, when you turn the wheel, you've only got 4 points of friction on between you and the road. Your car has 4 very small, about that big, points of friction. That's the only thing sticking you to the road. We just had this discussion, and my girls did not roll their eyes when I was talking about this, but I kind of feel like they probably wanted to, but they respect me, so they didn't. But this is important stuff. These are laws of physics, laws, immutable. These don't change. You can't ignore them. You can, but you'll pay for it, I guarantee you. How do I know? Because I was 16 once, and I totaled a car because I didn't apply the laws of physics. I didn't have in mind the 4 points of friction that my car had on the road, 4 very small, about this big points of friction that kept me on the road. And the roads were wet, and I was going down a hill, and there was a little curve, and I followed the curve, and I braked loose. And I crashed in the yard. Because I didn't obey the law. Now, we're having these discussions about surface tension, about friction, about momentum, about inertia, relating to driving the car. We're having these discussions about the law. Now, I drove here this morning in my van. How much thought did I give to friction, surface tension, inertia, momentum? 0. Why? Because I've internalized it. It's just part of who I am now. I feel it. I don't think about it. I don't think, oh, there's a stop sign up ahead in about 500 feet. I should probably take my foot off of the accelerator now and kind of coast, let gravity kind of do some of the work. And then when I get closer to the stop sign, then I'll get on the brakes a little bit, because I don't want to just hit the accelerator up into the point where I need to jam on the brake and stop, because that wears out your brakes, and that ruins your suspension, and that wears out your car. And these are all things that I've thought about over the years, and I don't think about them anymore. I just do them. It's just part of who I am. I've built habits. I've internalized these laws into the way I do things. What in the world does that have to do with Pentecost? A lot. What is Pentecost? Well, originally, let's read some. I have my Bible. Originally, Pentecost was associated with Mount Sinai and the giving of the law. Now, the children of Israel had been slaves, a.k.a. children, the children of Israel. They weren't in charge of anything. They were told what to do, when to get up, how to work, what to do, when to take a break, when to go to bed. Everything was told to them and given to them. If they needed something to eat, their captors gave them food. They didn't go get their own food. They didn't determine their own destiny. They were slaves, children. Children are like slaves, right? That's why we have them. You know, a little kid, a little 3, 4, 5-year-old kid doesn't make its own supper. You do that for them. They don't determine when they're going to go to school, what they're going to study. They don't determine anything. Everything is handed to them, told to them. And you know what? That's okay. When you're a kid, that's the way it is. That's the way it has to be. Little kids can't take care of themselves. They won't get up. They won't go to school. They won't eat breakfast. They won't go to bed on time. They must be told, this is the law. I'm giving you the law. It's necessary. There's no way around it. It's absolutely necessary. The giving of the law on Sinai was an inauguration into adulthood for the children of Israel. You've been slaves. You have no idea how to live. You have no idea how to get food, how to make your own shelter, how to get along, how to govern yourselves, how to deal with outside nations. What are you going to do when the bullies come? What are you going to do? They had no idea. It's not a criticism. That's an observation of reality. And God said, it's time for you to grow up. You're no longer a slave. Now you're going to be an individual. You're going to be a nation. You're going to stand on your own 2 feet and contend with the world. And here's how you're going to do it. I'm going to give you a constitution that governs your nation. You're going to make laws. You're going to make rules. You're going to make dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands of laws. Make sure that they all align with this Constitution. Here's 10. Here's 10 rules. The 10 Commandments. In case you think these are transitory or ephemeral, I'm going to go ahead and take my finger and write these in stone, God said. And he took a stone and he wrote these laws with his finger into the stone, etched out these laws. Permanence. That is, permanence, immutability. They don't go away. The law doesn't go away, ever. Just like friction and inertia and momentum and surface tension never go away. You can ignore it at your own peril. You can refuse to assimilate physics of driving a car. You can do that. And it won't end well. It's no way to live. Pentecost was the giving of the Constitution of how the children of Israel were going to emerge and mature into a freestanding nation before God. The Ten Commandments were their constitution. And they're just as immutable, they're just as indispensable as the laws of physics, and ever shall be. Forever. The New Testament didn't change this. Just like when I drove here this morning, I didn't think about these laws, but I obeyed them. I didn't think about them. I didn't think about the laws. I just did it. I just did them. Now, me not thinking about the law and, striving to keep in mind, keep in the we talked about focus. This band this morning focused our attention on Christ. My focus was not on these laws of physics, but I was still obeying these laws of physics. This is the New Testament. This is the New Covenant. The law is written on your heart. That doesn't unwrite it from the stone. It's still on the stone. But now it's here. You just do it. That's what we do. Now, fast forward. What was the second great manifestation of Pentecost? The upper room. 50 days after Passover, they were gathered together. I imagine the disciples had lost their man. They'd lost their leader. Their movement, all this momentum they thought they had was gone. There was no momentum at this point. Everything was against them. The Romans hated them. The Jews hated them. Everybody hated them. Their leader was gone. And they gathered. And they waited. And the Spirit came. The Spirit came and saved them. There's a profound parallel between the giving of the law on Sinai and the giving of the Spirit in the upper room. Profound connection. Don't bother trying to put these scriptures up because I'm just going to read snippets and I'm going to go fast. The gathering. Exodus 19:2. They had journeyed from Rephidim and had come to the wilderness of Sinai and had camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Pick up the needle from the record, you who remember records, and drop it back down in the New Testament era. In Acts 2, verse 1. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all gathered in one place. You read that again in Exodus 19:2. They had journeyed from Rephidim and had come to the wilderness of Sinai and had camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountains. Acts 2, verse 1. When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. The theophany. Theophany, what the heck's that? It's just a fancy word. It means the acts of God. So in Revelation, when you have lightning and thunder and shakings and hail and great goings on, that's theophany. That's God doing stuff. Exodus 19:16-18. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, priest. And they took their stand at the foot of the mountain, and Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. And the smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. Acts 2, verse 2 and 3. And suddenly a sound came from heaven like the rush of a mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them tongues of fire, distributed and resting on each of them. The filling. Exodus 19, again, verse 20. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Acts 2:4. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit. Exodus 20, verse 1. And God spoke all these words, saying, what he said. Acts 2, verse 4. And they began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. My goodness. The response, Exodus 20, verses 18 and 19. Now, when all the people perceived the thunderings and the lightnings, theophany, and the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled, and they stood afar off and said to Moses, You speak to us and we will hear, but let not God speak to us, lest we die. Acts 2, verse 6. And at this sound the multitude came together, and they were bewildered, because each one heard them speaking in his own language, and all were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, What does this mean? Exodus, you see, we're flipping back and forth between the two great manifestations of Pentecost. The giving of the law at Sinai and the upper room experience. Exodus 32:28. And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. I'm not providing a lot of context here, but I'm trying to move quickly. Acts 2, verse 41. So those who received his word were baptized, and there were added that day about 3,000 souls. What we have here is it's a tension between substance ontology and relational ontology. What in the world is ontology? It's very simple. Ont, it's a compound word made from Latin. The ont part is just being, it means being. And ology, you might guess, means the study of. It's the study of being. So ontology just means, what is this thing? What is this? What is it really? Well, it's some sort of plastic, PVC. There's some metal in there. There's a cam, sort of a cam, and then there's a screw that goes through there. No, this is glasses, guys. It's not plastic and screws and hinges. It's glasses. That's ontology. What is this thing? What are you? What are you? This comes up in the abortion debate. What is a fetus? It's a clump of cells, they say. Rightly. They're right. The fetus is a clump of cells. Guess what else is a clump of cells? You are. I am. I'm a clump of cells. Am I merely a clump of cells? No. I'm a human being. What does that mean? I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody has the answer to this. We do know for sure that we're not merely a clump of cells, for sure. There is an emergent property of humanness that supersedes the correct observation that you are a clump of cells. So, at the giving of the law, you have something akin to substance ontology. These are words that have meaning. This is what you're supposed to do. This is specific, and not a lot of thought is required. You don't murder, okay? That's not difficult to grasp. You don't commit adultery. We all know what that is. You know how to do it. You know how to not do it. It's simple substance. It just is what it is what it says. And that's where you start. Substance ontology is what I'm talking to my girls about driving. I'm telling them the substance, the being of driving. You have to first encounter the laws, understand them, apply them, think about them, be aware of them, focus on them, put your attention on them. That's what Sinai was. Here's 10 laws. Think about them. Think about all the possibilities that could come. Well, this could happen, and then what would we do if this happened? Well, then I might do, well, what's the law say? Well, I got to do that. That's substance ontology. Now in the upper room is the inauguration of relational ontology, meaning the definition of who we are relies on our relationship to one another and to God. That's who we are. In the abortion debate, the pro-abortion people will say, no, this is simple substance ontology. It's a clump of cells, nothing more. But when you apply relational ontology, no. Yeah, it's a clump of cells, but it's a human being. There is a profound potential. There's a soul being created who's going to move in the world and who's going to have relationships to family and friends in the world, and it's going to change things, going to change history. Every human being changes history. It's a big difference between the two. And they're both necessary. We don't say, well, human beings are not made of cells. Well, that's stupid. Of course we are. In the same way, we don't say, well, we have the Spirit now, guys. We've been in the upper room. The Spirit came down. We all talked in different tongues. And now we can just dispense with the law because everything's changed. No, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The law is forever. The laws of physics are forever. And the laws of God are forever. But it's not enough to stay in the substance ontological realm. We must move. We must internalize these laws and begin to be them. Be them. Be the law. What did Jesus do? He be the law. That's what he did. He lived it out. And he didn't get out a pen, what would it be back then? I don't know, a charred stick and a papyrus and calculate out everything in Leviticus it says, but then this guy's talking to me and he's mad at me, and I healed this guy on the Sabbath, and they're all mighty fired up about that, and let's see how I should react to it. He didn't do any of that. He just be it. He just be it. He be the law. He just be it. Does that mean that the law didn't have power or wasn't necessary for Jesus? Of course it was. He had just internalized it to such a degree that it was natural, automatic. And what are we called to? That. That. We're called to live the law through the Spirit, to internalize it, to make it into us, to become one with it, to the point where we're not having to flip through. And I mean, there are times when you need to do that because you encounter new situations that you don't know exactly how to handle because you're not mature. You're not as mature as you're going to be next year. And so we bump up against our limitations of understanding, and we do have to go back and thumb through Leviticus or Galatians or James or Matthew and think about it and focus our attention on the substance. But then we internalize it, we practice it, it becomes part of who we are. And now it's a relationship. That's what Pentecost provides us. It's a growing up. It's a graduation. You know, I hate this thing that people do now where you have your kid goes to first grade, goes to kindergarten, goes to first grade, and it's time for the kindergarten graduation or the first grade graduation. You're not graduating from anything. Come on, let's be honest. You did first grade, okay? You learned some letters. You learned a little bit of phonics. You can add 2 + 2. You didn't graduate nothing. But there are points of graduation. You know, high school graduation is important. It means something. It means something. You accomplished something. You spent years looking at the substance, the ontological substance. And now you're at this point where you're going to step out into the world and be it. Now you're going to be all these things that you learned about. You're going to internalize it and become it. It's important. That's what the children of Israel were faced with. And it was realized in the upper room. It was the next step. It was a graduation. And it does not do away. When you go from first grade to second grade, your second grade teacher never says, okay, now you're in second grade, so everything you learned in first grade is garbage. Forget all that. No. You build. It builds. It's like, I'm glad you understand all the first grade substance. Now, we're going to build on that, and we're going to learn second grade substance. And it's all meshed together. You have to have the one before you have the next. And then when you graduate high school, you step out into the world and you be it. That's what Pentecost is. That's what God is asking us to do. Not to do away with the law. You can't do away with the law. Try it. We're not going to do away with the law. We're going to be it.